Good afternoon and welcome to a brief workshop. I'm going to be covering textbook alternatives, how to find open education resources that you can use as course materials to enhance or beef up your online instruction now that we're all doing more online instruction than some of us ever planned. I'd like to just offer you some suggestions and give you some resources and then ultimately answer any questions you have. This is a recorded session, so feel free to reach out to me via email. My name is Andy Kulp. I'm one of the librarians here at Shenandoah, and one of my focuses here is open education resources, and along with instruction and some other things. But I'm going to show you some information today, and I want to give credit. So you'll notice in the screen on the left, you'll see the Open Education Network little logo. This is out of the University of Minnesota, and they have hosted hundreds and hundreds of open education, or rather open textbooks that you and your students can use free of charge. And I'll show you how to use those. And then this is all through a partnership with the Virtual Library of Virginia, or VIVA as we call them. And VIVA is a consortia. It's made up of a bunch of different academic libraries in Virginia. We all group together and chip in, and that helps us to pay for subscriptions and to get kind of discount pricing. And we do a lot of internal organization and education, and we are able to pool funds and offer things like stipends for reviewing textbooks. So I'd like to, let me show you where we're going. You can't answer me, but one of the main questions is, how do you already use textbooks, and how could you do that differently if you had other options? I'll just jump ahead. So what we're going to do this afternoon, I'm going to talk about what an open textbook is and how you can use them. And the need for them is largely based on cost. It's no surprise to any of you that textbook costs are a little bit out of control, and it makes it difficult for our students. I'll give you an invitation to review a textbook. Because we partner with a big organization like VIVA and like the University of Minnesota, we're able to offer you $200 if you will review a textbook. So if you choose one out of a specific online library and agree to review it, you submit your review and you'll get a check from George Mason University. Typically the checks arrive as soon as you've totally forgotten you ever did it. And then you'll get a bonus $200 just to leave a review. And I'll show you where that plays into what we're doing here today. And then I'm going to talk about how to find other open education resources that you can use in your classes, whether that's library materials or streaming video. And finally, we'll talk about other alternatives to textbooks. I also want to mention there is a grant being offered right now. If you have already picked out an open textbook or open education resources or anything that you would use in your courses that would make up a big portion of your course content for students, and it is going to save your students a bunch of money and make it easier for them to complete their coursework. There's a grant that's being offered by VIVA that will pay you $2,000 if you have to apply for it and be awarded, but you'll get $2,000 to help you develop that course because we recognize that it takes a little bit of work to redesign your course. So I'll tell you all about that. It's a quick turnaround, but you still have a week to apply for it, and the application has been thinned down, so it shouldn't take you more than a couple hours to apply. But again, I'll show you the information. Please follow up with questions if you have them, and I'm happy to help you walk through all of that. Okay, I'm just going to launch in. This is an article way back from a different world, back in 2015, and already back then, college textbook prices have risen over 1,000% since 1977. Textbook prices in general, and largely because the academic textbook market is dominated by only a handful of large publishers. So they have kind of cartel pricing, and they can raise the price as much as they want to. And you'll see the red, the red bar on this chart is textbook pricing over time. And you can contrast that to the consumer price index, which is just a business term for pick an average market basket of normal goods that consumers will buy, and we track that inflation over time. And you'll see it has risen minimally since 1980, whereas textbook prices have just skyrocketed obscenely. And there's a need for more affordable textbooks. Students back in 2016 say they got one or more textbooks. They bought them used. Most of them bought them used. A lot of them just didn't buy them. The textbook rental market is huge, but only 25% said they bought new books. Often in speaking with students, you may have found this to be true. They will only buy a new book if they have to do it because it comes with some kind of proprietary online link. So it used to be the textbooks came with a CD-ROM, and that was why we had to buy new textbooks. Now often they have online tools, which are awesome and we love, but it boosts the price of the book, and it means that students would normally buy a used textbook, but now they have to buy them new. And the user licenses for the online services time out, so they can't share them. Okay, so students are not buying new textbooks when they don't have to, and textbook costs have been inflated over 1,000% just in my lifetime, which is very brief. I'm very young and attractive. And so we're promoting an open textbook model where instead of publishers holding a copyright, authors hold a Creative Commons right. So instead of all rights being reserved, so nothing in the book can be reproduced or remixed or reused in any way, the Creative Commons model says that if you publish an open textbook, you are giving other people the rights to take your material and then use it for their own purposes, however they need to. And there are limits to that. You as the author can choose what those limits are. But basically it opens up the education market and says, yes, you can very much produce your own textbook, or you can find someone else's textbook and adjust it to meet your course needs. With Creative Commons licenses, you're free to copy or share or edit someone else's book. You can mix it up with, you can combine a couple different textbooks. And students who download a PDF of a free textbook online can keep it forever. The three main, I think these are the three main benefits to using open course content is you can customize it, you can contextualize it, and then opportunities for innovative pedagogy. I'll show you some examples. So content customization. Here's a collaborative stats book. And someone took this, it was published by Rice University. And they took it and they just added the spreadsheet component. So in their specific courses, they weren't just teaching collaborative stats, they were teaching collaborative stats with spreadsheets. So all they did was take this other textbook and remix it to include their own content involving, how to plug Excel or Google Sheets or something else, SPSS or something into this to make it more useful. An example of contextualization. Here's your standard sociology text. This would be 100, 200 level Soc book. And this is published by OpenStax, which is a huge publisher of open content. And these people, they took it and they just made it Canadian, which is a great example of contextualization. Because if you have this free textbook already, why not put your own extra U's inside to make it so that all your Canadian students are able to read it more carefully? Or you can plug in examples from the Canadian experience with First Nations or their own government or their own whatever. So you can take existing material and then really customize it or contextualize it to fit your context. Another example, opportunities for innovative pedagogy. This textbook on project management, specifically for instructional designers, this was a grad class, and over time, the instructor would take sections of this book, and because he's teaching instructional design, he would actually have his students rewrite parts of the book. And then over the semesters, the students would end up completely redesigning this instructional design book, and then they would graduate with a citation. They had helped to group edit or group author something. And so they all graduated with, they already had a document to their name. I mentioned OpenStax before. It's from Rice University. They have a whole pile of open textbooks. These are free to adopt and adapt and reuse. They're free for students to download as PDFs. Many of them do have related resources that, like test banks or online quiz banks or things like that. Some of them you can link to video tutorials, but these are free to use and share. And you can even just take a book and include the link in your Canvas or your syllabus or your Blackboard page, and it gives students an entire textbook written by academics and professors and researchers, and they're not paying $70, $80, $200 for them. We can look more closely at this at the end if you'd like to, but this is one avenue to go. You can use a consortium or an organization like OpenStax to just find a textbook that's already out there. Cali's another good example. They specialize in legal texts, but if you look at the statistics from their legal instruction collection, I think it's something like 80% of all law schools are using some of these books. It's been a huge addition to that field. Several peer-reviewed studies, a couple more since this slide was created, several peer-reviewed studies have looked into how effective open textbooks are, or OER in general. And they come back with the results that, yes, if an instructor is committed to the process and really is designing courses around a new textbook, then open textbook make as much sense as the traditional textbook will. Now, it's not all sunshine and daisies. Anytime you adopt new course materials, you have to plug them in intelligently to your course. You can't just switch out textbooks without the work that comes with that. But if you're willing to look at it carefully, you can do a whole lot with this. You can customize it, you can plug in your own examples, and you can think of really creative ways to make students more engaged in your courses. Here's an example, another OpenStax book. This is college level physics. It's just your basic 2-semester college physics book, 1,200 pages. You can download it in several different formats. So if your campus is a Mac only campus, for example, you can download the EPUB format and everyone can have it on their iPad. You can print it out. Sometimes, or most often, you can actually request a book like this from the publisher or from your campus bookstore, and they will print and bind it for 30 or 40 bucks. But typically most people use them online for free. This one has an instructor solution manual, so you get the answer keys. Typically you would verify your instructor status and they will send you access to those keys. And it comes with its own PowerPoint slide bank, so you can customize those as well. The University of Georgia compared their use before and after they changed to OER, and not university-wide, but a broad adoption there. And they found that the drop-fail withdrawal rates decreased as students could afford textbooks more readily. And the overall grades increased, which is great. You can read more about this. If you're interested, let me know and I can pull up more data on University of Georgia's results. We have a whole bunch of information on this. I should unpack this a little bit while we're here all together. Essentially what we see is textbook cost is a huge driver of drop-fail withdrawal. I remember when I was an undergrad, I would enroll in classes that I knew I was not going to buy the textbook for. And I and others sometimes had to drop those courses when I realized that that $200 textbook was a big part of the course and there was no one who was going to let me borrow it, or it came with other proprietary information that I just could not share with another student. So we do see drop-fail withdrawal rates affected when course costs are limited. The Open Textbook Library. So this is the group out of the University of Minnesota, and it's a huge library. And this is the library where if you choose one of these books to review, we can give you $200 for that review. Once you commit to review it, all you have to do is send me the title by a certain date and then complete a review by another date. And we'll do some paperwork and you'll get paid to offer a review. The idea is that we want careful, thoughtful reviews of the textbooks to help inform other instructors who are considering them. And VIVA is able to pay for it, which is awesome. There's also an Open Adopt grant. Well, one thing at a time. Let me pause for a moment and show you the Open Textbook Library. So here's the Open Textbook Library. I will send you links to this as well. It's just open.umn.edu, Open Textbooks. If you just search in Google or somewhere for the Open Textbook Library, you'll end up here as well. It's not a beautiful website, but it's pretty helpful. You can browse subjects. So if you're interested in education or engineering or the humanities or journalism, you can do that. I'll just jump into business. And these are the textbooks. Financial management for small business, strategic marketing in the global forest industries, and so on. Okay, now some of these you'll realize have no reviews. And it'd be helpful to have reviews for them. Some of them, these are kind of niche topics, but some of them have dozens and dozens of reviews. If we pull up a psych book, for example, it would have a lot of reviews. And all we're looking for, let me find one with reviews, business ethics. You can click into the book. Here's your table of contents. You can just download the entire book as a PDF. You can use it as a website, or you can download it as an ebook. All of those are free, and it's pretty simple to do. If you want to look at it, it looks like a textbook. It'll come with charts and images. Often they'll just open in a different website. And then you would just literally include this link for your students, or just supply it to them, and they would have an entire textbook for free. Again, if they want to print it out, they could do that, but they're able to just jump through the whole textbook. And as an instructor, the best part is, if you don't want to use this whole textbook, you are able to copy it and produce a version that only has the first 7 chapters. Or you can add a whole bunch to chapter 3, and you can customize it and bring in other materials. You have the rights to do that because it's published under an open license. Okay, as far as the reviews go, these are, where'd I go? I wanted to show you that one book. Bear with me here. Okay, so if we're just looking at this one business ethics book, we can see that it was reviewed by a few people. Here are the reviews. If you agree to review, we'll just give you a form, and it'll say, please rate this book according to its comprehensiveness, its accuracy, its relevancy, its clarity, consistency, et cetera, all the way down to grammatical errors. So we ask you to look at the book and tell us what you like and don't like about it. And we're really looking for honesty, not a glowing review. Because if it's not a great book, we want people to know that. But if it is a great book, we want people to adopt it. So we want people to be able to use it. So you'll rate things 1 to 5 as far as all the, 1 to 5 according to all these categories. And you'll submit your review. That's really all it takes. Several times in the past couple of years, people who have reviewed these end up using them in their courses. It's not required though. You don't actually have to use the book. We just want your opinion of it as a professional, as an instructor. You know, what is and is not useful about this book. There are books on all different topics. It's very broad. There may not be something precisely on what you're doing though. So it's not a tool for everyone, but it's pretty broad. I used psychology before So let me pull that up. You can search by keyword or browse. They have a whole pile of psych books. And some of them are very niche and some of them are more general. So psych as a biological science or as a social science. Anyway, this is the open textbook library. If you are interested in completing a review, I'll give you instructions for that as we go on. And at the end, I'll actually send you a document if you'd like that, if you need it. But it tells you how to complete that process. And I can kind of be flexible with the dates. I know this is recording, so we're not all here together right now, but I'll give you some dates on when to get those back to me. If you email me, we can make that customizable as well. Okay, I'm going to jump back into my PowerPoint. I'm going to try to. I lied, I don't know how. Okay, here we are. So VIVA is offering an Open Adopt grant. Now this is time sensitive, so this recording and when you watch it will matter quite a bit. But in a brief nutshell, there are several $2,000 awards to faculty members from all different kinds of schools who are already considering an open textbook or open course materials. So say they're going to teach a course and they're going to use materials that students can access for free online. And that's a change from what they used to do, because they used to buy this huge criminology book and it cost people $80 a semester, and every criminology major had to go through this course. So if you're saving, 100 students a year, $80 each, we would ask you to kind of look into how much your savings would be. And you report all that in your grant application. And VIVA will select several different instructors to do this. And you'll receive $2,000 to kind of defray the cost of redesigning your course around an open textbook or open course materials. It's for individual instructors, so this is not a group grant. It's just for individuals. And there is a course development grant that you can apply to, which I can give you more information on if you're interested, but this would be for lone warriors, we'll call them. And there's a deadline. VIVA needs these applications by October 19th, 2020. Now, if this is successful, they'll offer it again, but for now, it's a 2020. And this would be a course that you're designing for the spring. More realistically, it's a course you're designing for next fall, for fall of 2021. There's more information in our Open Education Resources Research Guide, and I'll show you where to find that in a moment. But here on the top of the screen, you can see I have the grant deadline, and I have links to more information. There's a whole PowerPoint about the grant if you're interested. And then the grant's application, there's a link to the VIVA page where you can find that. On this page also, you'll see links to major collections of open resources, but I'll show you that at the end of the presentation. More information on the grant. This is their application page. And I wanted to talk about other textbook alternatives. I'm trying to move this pretty quickly to give you all your free time back. Okay, our library, our Shenandoah library, subscribes to thousands and thousands of ebooks that you can use as textbooks. And that would also be helpful for students who otherwise have to buy them. Typically at this point, I would also say, if you have extra textbooks, we should put them on reserve in the library. And then students can check them out to use them in our library. Fewer and fewer students are in our physical building though, especially this year. It's been an interesting year. So if you have extra textbooks, please bring them to the library and we'll put them on reserve and students can use them. However, that's becoming less and less common. So what I would say is, if you're teaching a new course or you're revising an existing course, maybe look through our ebooks, look through our course, or look through our catalogs and see if we have books that are available for free that your students can use for their courses, because that could be a huge benefit. And we have some decent stuff. These are just 3 examples I pulled out on criminal justice or rehabilitative medicine. and special effects. One other benefit of ebooks is that you can, because students aren't buying them, you can just assign one chapter or one section, and it doesn't cost anyone anything. You can also include a direct link to the book in your Canvas page or your syllabi, so students can go right to them. And then you avoid the whole "I couldn't find it" excuse that we see pretty often. Or you could just use it to supplement what you're already doing. So say people are already taking a criminal justice course, but you're going to assign a message board assignment where they're supposed to read, pages 117 through 131 from this one criminal justice book, and then respond to it in the message board, and then respond to someone else's response to it or something. Basically, it takes the strain off of feeling the pressure to use the textbook you ask people to buy. You don't have to use the whole book. You can just pull sections out because it's free for all of you, because students have already paid for it with their tuition. And then we have the library. Our library page is, it's a work in progress, but we have ebooks you can use. We have article databases. I'll show you some of those. We have streaming videos. We have research guides to pull them all together to give your students one place to look. But we encourage you to use the things that students have already paid for. This can be in addition to their textbooks, or it can be in place of their textbooks. We have a lot out there, and we have some interesting stuff. You do have to do some digging. Okay, I want to show you some of our library resources. Somewhere here. Here's our library page. We do have a chat feature that I don't want to use right now. But we also have FAQs. So if at any point you get stuck, those might be helpful. Real basic, a book search. You can search for ebooks. Again, thousands of ebooks. I'm happy, or someone else in the library is happy to help you find one that would be useful. Just let us know. Research guides, I do want to show you specifically. We build our research guides to give your students a place to start their research. This means we would love to get your feedback on them. So if you teach applied behavioral analysis and this guide is not useful to you, we want to know what would make it more useful. How are your students using it? Or are there other databases that you use? Do you need another tutorial for this stuff? Would it be helpful? But the goal is that you assign research and then you tell the students to come here, and these are the databases that we know would be most helpful for what they're doing. Or assessments, or stats, or how to use citation tools. The goal is to give your students a place to start. Let me show you another example. We have a research basics guide, it's designed for first-year experience classes and for just general research that may not fit into one of these. But we have pretty much everything else. At least most of our majors are represented here. There's research basics. We have film studies, which gives you links to different streaming videos and things. We also have, oh yeah, so I encourage you to look up your research guide. If you need help with them, please let me know. They are just on the homepage. They're pretty easy to find, and they're easy to direct students to. And if students get stuck, tell them to find us, and we're happy to help them. Some other examples of things. We talked a little bit about ebooks. I showed you some examples. Here's some more. I just did a real simple search. We all have a burning desire to read about plantar fasciitis in an ebook. And so I just did a simple plantar fasciitis search and limited it to the last 5 years. And we have Waldman's Atlas, Avoiding Common Errors in Emergency Department, a whole book on plantar fasciitis, survival guide. So this is something that you're not going to build a course around, but maybe you're building a unit or a module around, or maybe when you're assigning group projects, you say, I want you to base it off of these 3 chapters in this one book. And most of these have unlimited user access. So as long as you're logging in with the Shenandoah University login, a whole class could be in them at the same time. If you have trouble with that, let us know. There might be limitations on some of them. Ebooks are fair game. It's a pretty simple system to search, but if you get stuck, we're happy to come to your classes in person or in Zoom and show you how to use the database or the catalogs. Streaming media, we have a Films on Demand database. I did a simple search for Black Lives Matter just to see what we have. And it pulls up 75 results. I did limit it to the last year. So you'll see results from PBS and HBO, Talking Black in America. There's a Trump 2020 program that's interesting. You can add more keywords to segment it down. But these are things, you'll see some of them are brief. There's a 12-minute, and then here's an hour and 40 minutes. Some of them are biographies, some of them are dramatizations, some of them are documentaries, and some of them are segments of other shows. So they can be useful in your classes, and you can link these directly. So here's a link. You would just pop that into your syllabus or your Canvas page, and students will go directly to it, or your PowerPoint. So this is more for documentaries and short segments or longer form stuff that's educational in nature. And then we have, quite frankly, a weird collection. I probably shouldn't say that, but this is feature films for education. And it's literally just feature films that could be used as education. And it's everything, you know, this is just the genre view. But for example, literary adaptation, films based off or inspired by literature. And these are things that have been recognized to be useful in other courses. And again, it's a great place to look. You will not, this is not a replacement for Netflix. It's not a replacement for Canopy or Amazon Prime, but it's a great place to find things that you can assign. Sometimes it's helpful to look while you're redoing a course to kind of build them into your courses rather than say, I really want this one film, I can't find it anywhere. There's a good chance it's not going to be here because this only has, I forget how many, several hundred films, not several thousand films. But there is some quality stuff in here and it does get updated fairly often. So we have ebooks, we have streaming. Here's our database list. If you're on our library homepage, here's databases. You can also search for specific journals, but it's sometimes helpful to give students a database to start from and then have them go from there. So for example, let me look at Hein Online. Hein Online is an enormous collection of history and legal and government documents and books. And they have different collections that can be useful. So they have a whole collection on the Pentagon Papers and a huge collection on slavery in America and the world. They also just added an American impeachment library, which just goes through all the historical documentation for the different impeachments that have happened over the last couple hundred years. It's some interesting stuff. This is also a great place to find government documents on current laws or legislation that's working through the system. And it's really good for historical perspectives on that because it does go the whole way back to the founding. There are a lot of different ways to use Hein. It's just one example of a database. We have a lot of databases that could be interesting to build a course around. So take one collection like slavery in the US and the world. You could build a course contrasting slavery in the US with slavery in Brazil or slavery in Togo or in India and see what that was like. And compare them and then apply that to different economies and different worldviews and see what that all measures out to. That's a downer example, but it could be interesting, I think. Okay, let me show you my Open Education Research Guide. I'll go back to my homepage. If you want to find open ed resources, if you don't know where to start, I have a research guide. If you go to research guides, and then OER or Open Ed. There I am. Okay, so I just have a basic overview of what open education research or resources are. Here's a link to find open textbooks. This is the one with the grant information on it. If you'll scroll down, there's a link to the open textbook library. That's the library you can choose to review a book from. We also have an enormous directory of open access ebooks, and then another collection from SUNY up in New York. OpenStax is from Rice. Open Textbook is from University of Minnesota, and then SUNY is from New York. So there are some pretty big names supporting this initiative. We also have some meta finders. So these are basically enormous search engines where you can find open education resources. And they will return, you can segment through them or chop down your results, but you'll find everything from textbooks to entire courses, to streaming media sometimes, to slide decks and PowerPoints. So you have to dig around a little bit, but it can be interesting and you can find some good stuff there. And again, we're happy to help you dig if that's what you need to do. And then these are other initiatives that support OER, and there are other places to find things and to find support for them. I'm not going to take you through these because there are too many, and you're all adults and you can do that yourselves. So please try those out. If you get stuck, please reach out and I can help you with those. Okay, finally, and then I'll let you go. If you would like, let me know and I'll send you a document. The document looks like this. It goes over some of the basic information we covered today, with links to the research guide and our website. It has contact information for me and for Kathy, my colleague, who will also help you. And then it goes over just the basics of how to get paid for offering a review and links to learn more about the Open Adopt grant. I do encourage you all to try the review process, unless you've already done it this year. You can only do it once a year. But basically, you'll pick a textbook, you'll email me the title, I will report that back to VIVA, and then you will be given a form. Someone will email you a form that you'll fill out with your review. It doesn't have to be very long. We just want it to be careful. We want you to put the time into a little bit. So look through the book, apply your professional lens to it, and then tell us about it. And when you submit that, it'll get added to their website, the Open Textbook Library, and an open license so other people can read it. And your name will be attached to it. And then VIVA will contact you from James or George Mason will contact you, and they'll give you a secure link to submit a W-9, and they'll pay you $200. In my experience, I did this a couple of years ago, and several people at our university have done it in the last couple of years. And in my experience, it takes a couple months to get paid, but it's kind of nice because by the time you forgot about it, you'll get a check for $200. And that's like a gas bill in December. So, you know, it works out. Okay. At this point, if this were not a recording, I would ask for questions, and we would spend some time going through your individual questions and what you really need. But because this is a recording, I'll just say, here's my email address. Please ask if you have questions, and I will get back to you when I can, pretty quickly, I think. And we'll try to make this work, especially if you have questions about the Open Adopt grant, because you only have a week from this recording to apply for that. If you need information on that, absolutely get in touch, and I'm happy to help you with that. Okay, thank you for joining me. I'm going to stop recording now, but have a great day, and please reach out if you have any questions.